guys, Lewis here, and in this video today I'd like to talk about some do's and don'ts of gypsy jazz soloing. When you first get into this style and like to attempt some improvisation, the soloing can be quite challenging initially to get that gypsy jazz sound, so I'd like to give you a bit of advice about that. The first thing that I'd like to say is a must, is trying to spell out the changes. So previous to gypsy jazz, I played a lot of acoustic fingerstyle, a lot of blues, and when I was doing any improvisation, I could literally think about what key the song is in and just jam using scales. But for gypsy jazz, that's not really how you get that sort of sound. So if you take minor swing, for example, because there's not many chords in it, that's in the key of A minor. Now the E7, that's the 5 chord of A minor, but it's actually a dominant 5, so you've definitely got to spell that out even more. So when I'm improvising over minor swing, well, let's say when I first started, I'd probably just pick a scale and, like I said, pentatonic scale, and have a bit of a jam, but you just don't get that sound. The way to get the sound, like I said, is to spell the changes out. So, how do you do that? Django used mainly arpeggios in his solos, some elements from scales, but mainly arpeggios. So I think step one would be to learn arpeggios over the changes. Once again, I'll take minor swing into example. So even though the first chord is an A minor 6, you can go as intense as that, but you can just play A minor for now. I'll do that. And the A minor 6, okay, that's really hitting the chord tone of that chord. So what I do is, I've got my A minor 6 arpeggio. Underneath it, I sort of know what scale I'm using as well. So for example, let's say the natural minor scale. So I've got all them notes to choose with. I've got my A minor 6 arpeggio, which is really spelling out the chord itself, and I've got the scales for some extra notes. So I know I need to aim for the root, the minor 3rd, the 5th, and the 6th on this occasion to get that A minor 6 down. And I do have the scale to sort of play some extra little notes with it, but they're the ones I'm going to aim for, right? So when I'm playing over this chord, you don't want to do this and just jam scales. You want to do more like this. Okay, so what was I doing there? A little bend into the 6th, like this. Very Django. Going down the arpeggio, I might do a little enclosure, I'll talk about that later on. And then moving back into the root from there. So I'm really conscious about the actual chords I'm playing over. When I go to the D minor, I know a D minor arpeggio. I know a little scale underneath it. I use they're my target notes in the arpeggio. But then I use maybe a little bit of the scale just to add some extra notes in. So if this is my chord, here's my arpeggio. And then from there, I'll improvise a bit like this. So that note I ended on was the 3rd of D minor, and that's a really prominent note inside of a D minor. E7, once again, I know the arpeggio. I know a little scale. And then I use elements of the scale for some extra notes, but I'm really focusing on my arpeggio. So over that E7, I might do something like this. Okay, so that lick there, little chromatic movement. And that note I'm ending on is the flat 7 of E. So if you think about how an E7 is built, root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7. Now that flat 7 is the main note that makes it an E7 rather than a standard E major. So if I aim for that note, it's going to be the best choice. So what are we doing so far? A minor 6th, maybe the minor 3rd and the 6th might be a great choice. D minor, depending on what voicing you're using. Let's say if I go to a D minor 6, well, it's the same as like the A minor 6, the 3rd and the 6th would be a great choice. And the E7, probably that flat 7 would be the best choice. So let me just do a really slow solo, spelling out the changes, but listen to my ending target notes and how I'm focusing on the arpeggio. 1, 2, 3. D minor, E7, flat 7, there's the 6 for A minor 6 again. So I'm actually really conscious about each changes, and as you heard with those notes I played, it didn't just sound like one scale. I was constantly thinking about the changes. If I give you one more little example, if I base it over the tune All of Me, there's loads of changes in that song. If you don't know that, that's a great song to try this over. If I just play a few of the chords, C, E7, A7, D minor, E7, A minor, D7, D minor, G7, C. Already, right? A lot of changes. But when I improvise over All of Me, I'm literally thinking about every chord change. So I know the arpeggios for the changes, and I might do something a bit like this. I'll do it slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. E7. E7. A minor. D minor. So when I was improvising then, in my head anyway, I'm really thinking about the changes, but you can hear that in the notes I'm playing. It didn't just sound like a C major scale up and down the neck. So this is a big do for gypsy jazz soloing. Really think about spelling out the changes. The next thing I'd like to be thinking about, and a big do for gypsy jazz soloing, is learning some Django licks. There's no better person to learn this style than learn from the greats. So what I'd recommend to do is find your favourite Django tunes or just gypsy jazz inspired songs and really get into the fine details of certain licks. So for example, I've got some set licks that I do every gig, and let's say if I was playing over the chord A7, Django did something like this. So I can play that at a slow tempo. Plenty of vibrato at the end, or if I quite fast speed, if I do it. It sounds great, and I've got that in my locker, and I can move that into any key I want. So if you're playing a tune like Sweet Georgia Brown, you maybe wouldn't do quite like this, but you can play the same lick over, you know, all them dominant chords. E7, A7, D7, G. E7, A7, D7, G. So the fact I've got that lick, it means when I'm on stage or when I'm performing and I go, I don't quite know what to do next, I chuck in one of these licks and it works from there. So definitely learn some Django licks. The other one I like to do over minor chords, every gig I do this lick, is my posh one. Something a bit like that. Now, that's normally the one where people go, oh yeah, that's a really cool lick. And it's just because I stole it off Django and I just copied him, did it. And now when I'm on a minor chord, I've got that available to me. So definitely learn some Django inspired licks. With the licks, so you can actually use this to create your own now. So we talked about arpeggios over scales, really spelling out the notes. Django, use Django, any popular gypsy jazz player to find some ideas. But think about what they're actually doing. So Django did a lot of little bends up to notes. So if I play this little Django lick. So what I'm really doing there is a minor 6 arpeggio. Root, minor 3rd, 5th, 6. Like on an A minor 6. And what Django did would start a semitone below the 6 and bend up to it. So instead of doing this, Django would do this. So you can take that idea and apply it wherever you want. Bend up to notes, little semitone bends, not quite full tone bends like big rock sort of bends, but little semitone. Sound really great in gypsy jazz. So little bends is something I think is a great thing to do. The other one is enclosures. So if you get a little A minor arpeggio, an enclosure is where you start a semitone below or above and then resolve it to the note, and it sounds very gypsy jazz. So here's the arpeggio again. Here we go. Now I'll go the other way. Instantly, it's got that very exotic sort of sound. Merge them together. Okay, so little enclosures. Don't overdo it, but a little bit of that sounds great. So enclosures is something else. Final thing that I think you should do is take it slow, not overdo it. Because we hear all these great licks really speedy, but that takes time. So when you're playing, remember, take it slow as well. And that's all for today. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below this video. And if you'd like to dive further into gypsy jazz soloing or just gypsy jazz general playing, then please get in touch regarding online lessons. I do these with people all over the world, and I'm sure we'll find a time to swap between us. All my details are in the description just below this video. But have fun with it, keep jamming, and I'll speak to you soon.